What happens when royal entitlement meets morning television reality? When a member of the British royal family believes they can control the narrative on live TV, only to discover that seasoned journalists don't bow to titles and crowns? In just 41 seconds, Prince Andrew would go from composed royal guest to explosive antagonist, unleashing a verbal attack that would shock viewers across the nation and cement his reputation as someone completely out of touch with ordinary people. Good Morning Britain's studio buzzed with its usual energy as cameras prepared to roll. Susanna Reid, the show's respected presenter, sat poised at her desk, notes organized, questions prepared. She had interviewed countless public figures, politicians, and celebrities. Her reputation was built on asking the tough questions while maintaining professionalism and grace under pressure. Today's guest was different, though. Today, she would be sitting across from Prince Andrew, a man whose recent years had been marked by controversy and scandal. The red light flickered on. They were live. "Good morning," Susanna began, her voice warm yet authoritative. "I'm joined now by His Royal Highness Prince Andrew. Thank you for being with us this morning." Prince Andrew nodded curtly, his posture rigid in the guest chair. His expression suggested he viewed this appearance as an obligation rather than an opportunity. "Good morning, Susanna," he replied, though his tone carried an air of someone doing the show a favor by gracing them with his presence. "I'd like to start by discussing your recent charitable work," Susanna continued, following her prepared opening. "You've been involved with several organizations over the past months. Can you tell our viewers about your current projects?" The prince's eyes narrowed slightly. This wasn't the softball question he had apparently expected. "Well, yes," he said slowly. "I've been working with various charities, though I must say the media coverage has been rather unfair in how they've portrayed my efforts." "Unfair? In what way?" Susanna pressed gently, her journalistic instincts kicking in. This was exactly the kind of response that begged for follow-up. Prince Andrew shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The press seems determined to focus on negative aspects rather than the good work being done. It's quite frustrating when you're trying to help people and the media twists everything. But surely you understand that public figures, especially members of the royal family, are held to higher standards? Susanna asked, her tone remaining professional but direct. The public has a right to know about the activities of those they support through taxes. The change in Prince Andrew's demeanor was immediate and noticeable. His jaw tightened, and his eyes flashed with irritation. "I don't think you quite understand the position you're putting me in here, Susanna. I came on this program expecting a civilized discussion about my charitable work, not to be interrogated like some common criminal." Susanna remained calm, her years of experience showing. "I'm simply asking questions that I believe our viewers would want answered. Isn't transparency important?" "Transparency?" Prince Andrew's voice rose slightly. "What you call transparency, I call harassment. The media, including this program apparently, seems to think they have the right to pry into every aspect of royal life. It's beyond inappropriate." The tension in the studio was palpable. Camera operators glanced at each other, recognizing they were witnessing something unusual unfold. Susanna maintained her composure, but viewers could see she was taken aback by the prince's defensive response to what had been a fairly standard question. "Your Royal Highness," Susanna said carefully, "I think there may be a misunderstanding. I'm not trying to harass you. These are legitimate questions about your public role and activities. Our viewers support the royal family and deserve to understand how their contributions are being used." Prince Andrew leaned forward in his chair, his voice taking on a condescending tone. "Let me explain something to you, Susanna. I've been serving this country for decades. I've sacrificed more than you could possibly understand. And now I have to sit here and justify myself to a morning television host who clearly doesn't grasp the complexities of royal duties." The insult was clear, and Susanna's professional mask flickered for just a moment. She had been called many things in her career, but having her competence questioned so publicly by a guest was unusual and unprofessional. Still, she maintained her composure. "I understand you've served in the military and in various royal capacities," she responded evenly. "But that service doesn't exempt you from accountability, does it? Surely you'd agree that all public servants should be accountable to the people they serve?" "Accountable?" Prince Andrew practically spat the word. "I'm accountable to the Queen and to the institution of the monarchy, not to morning television audiences or their presenters who think they can play gotcha journalism with members of the royal family." Susanna took a deep breath, clearly trying to de-escalate the situation while still doing her job. "I'm not playing gotcha journalism. I'm asking straightforward questions about your public work. If you'd prefer to discuss something else, we can certainly change direction." But Prince Andrew was beyond reason now, his sense of entitlement fully on display. "You know what the problem is with people like you, Susanna? You think because you have a television program, you have the right to challenge your betters. You forget your place in the natural order of things." The studio fell silent, except for the hum of equipment. Even the production crew seemed stunned by what they were witnessing. Prince Andrew had just openly dismissed not only Susanna, but, by extension, the entire viewing public as beneath him. His mask of polite royal decorum had completely slipped away. Susanna Reid had interviewed prime ministers who dodged questions with more grace than this. She had sat across from convicted criminals who showed more respect for the process, but never in her career had she encountered such naked arrogance from someone who was supposed to represent the best of British values. The prince's comment about "your betters" and "natural order" hung in the air like poison gas, and she knew millions of viewers had just heard a member of the royal family essentially tell them they didn't matter. "I'm sorry," Susanna said, her voice steady but with a new edge of steel. "But I don't accept that there's a natural order that places anyone above basic accountability. Every person in public service, regardless of their title, should be able to answer reasonable questions about their work." Prince Andrew's face reddened. The idea that someone, especially a woman, would dare to challenge his worldview so directly seemed to infuriate him beyond measure. "You clearly don't understand how the world works, Susanna. Some people are born to lead, others to follow. Some people make the important decisions. Others just read the news. That's reality." The patronizing tone was unmistakable, and Susanna felt the insult land. He wasn't just attacking her professionally anymore. He was dismissing her entire career, her intelligence, and her worth as a human being. But she maintained her composure, knowing that losing her temper would only give him ammunition. "I read the news because I've worked hard to build a career in journalism," she replied calmly. "I've earned my position through education, experience, and dedication. I wasn't handed anything because of who my parents were." The implication was clear, and Prince Andrew's eyes flashed dangerously. "How dare you?" he said, his voice rising. "How dare you suggest that I haven't earned my position? Do you have any idea what it's like to grow up under constant scrutiny? To have every move analyzed and criticized? To have ungrateful people like you question your every decision?" "Ungrateful?" Susanna repeated, genuinely shocked by the word choice. "Ungrateful for what exactly?" "For everything the royal family does for this country," Prince Andrew shot back. "We dedicate our lives to public service, and this is the thanks we get? Being ambushed on morning television by jumped-up presenters who think they're investigative journalists?" The insults were coming faster now, each one more revealing of his true character. Susanna realized that Prince Andrew wasn't just having a bad morning. This was who he really was behind the carefully crafted public image. This was a man who genuinely believed that ordinary people should be grateful for his existence. "I don't think asking about your charitable work constitutes an ambush," Susanna said, her professionalism remarkable given the circumstances. "And I certainly don't think I'm jumped up. I'm doing my job, which is to ask questions on behalf of our viewers." "Your viewers," Prince Andrew said with obvious disdain, "don't understand the complexities of what people like me deal with every day. They sit at home, watching television, forming opinions about things they know nothing about. And you feed into that ignorance by pretending their opinions matter." The contempt in his voice was breathtaking. In less than 10 minutes, Prince Andrew had managed to insult not just Susanna, but every single person watching the program. He had revealed himself to be exactly the kind of out-of-touch aristocrat that Republicans used as ammunition against the monarchy. "Those viewers you're dismissing so casually are the people who fund the royal family through their taxes," Susanna pointed out, her voice remaining level despite the provocation. "Their opinions do matter. In a democracy, everyone's opinion matters." "Democracy!" Prince Andrew scoffed. "Another fairy tale people tell themselves. Real leadership comes from breeding, from centuries of tradition, from understanding that some people are simply better equipped to make decisions than others. You can't vote for good judgment or noble character." Susanna stared at him in disbelief. She had expected defensiveness, maybe some evasion, but not this level of open contempt for democratic values. Prince Andrew was essentially arguing for aristocratic supremacy on live television, completely oblivious to how his words would be received by the public. "Are you seriously suggesting that birth determines someone's worth or capability?" she asked, giving him a chance to clarify or backtrack. I'm suggesting that some families have been preparing for leadership for generations, he replied, doubling down on his elitist position. While others have been, well, doing other things. There's nothing wrong with knowing your place in society. And what's my place? Susanna asked directly, her patience finally showing signs of strain. Prince Andrew looked at her with something approaching pity. Your place is to inform people about the weather and traffic. Maybe interview some celebrities about their latest projects. You're not equipped to challenge the decisions of people who've been trained for public service since birth. The studio was electric with tension. Camera operators were getting shots they knew would be replayed for years. The production team was frantically signaling, but Susanna was beyond caring about time constraints or commercial breaks. This was journalism in its purest form, exposing someone's true character by simply giving them enough rope. Trained for public service since birth, Susanna repeated slowly, letting the words hang in the air. Is that what you call it, when someone grows up with every privilege imaginable, never having to worry about paying bills or finding work, never having to earn anything through merit alone? Prince Andrew's composure finally snapped completely. His face turned a deep shade of red, and when he spoke, his voice was loud enough that viewers could probably hear him without microphones. How dare you lecture me about privilege? You have no idea what sacrifice means. You've never had to give up your privacy, your freedom, your entire life for the service of ungrateful people like you. Ungrateful people like me, Susanna said, her voice remaining calm but with an unmistakable note of steel. You keep using that word. What exactly should I be grateful for? What have you personally done that requires my gratitude? I've dedicated my life to this country, Prince Andrew shouted, completely losing control now. I've served in the military. I've represented Britain around the world. I've worked tirelessly for charitable causes, and all I get is criticism from people who couldn't do my job for 5 minutes. But that's the choice you made, Susanna pointed out reasonably. No one forced you to be born into the royal family, but having been born into it, you chose to accept the privileges that come with it. Surely the scrutiny is part of that package? Prince Andrew leaned forward aggressively, pointing his finger directly at Susanna. You think this is a game, don't you? You think you can sit there in your little television studio and tear down institutions that have served this country for 1,000 years? Well, let me tell you something about your precious democracy and accountability. His voice had become increasingly erratic, and Susanna could see that whatever media training he'd received had completely abandoned him. This was raw, unfiltered arrogance speaking now. Democracy is a nice idea for people who don't understand how the world really works, he continued, his words tumbling out faster now. But when real decisions need to be made, when real leadership is required, you don't turn to some shopkeeper's daughter who thinks reading the news makes her qualified to judge her superiors. The personal attack was so shocking, so completely inappropriate, that even Susanna was momentarily speechless. Prince Andrew had just insulted not only her background, but the background of millions of working-class people watching the program. The reference to her father's profession was clearly meant as a slur, an attempt to put her back in what he saw as her proper place. But if Prince Andrew expected Susanna to crumble under this assault, he had badly miscalculated. Instead, her voice became even more controlled, more professional, making his outburst look even more unhinged by contrast. My father worked hard to provide for his family, she said quietly. He taught me the value of honest work and treating people with respect, regardless of their background. I'm proud of where I come from, and I'm proud of the career I've built through my own efforts. Your own efforts? Prince Andrew sneered. You mean reading words off a teleprompter and asking impertinent questions of people who are actually important? Anyone can do what you do, Susanna. Not everyone can do what I do. The studio had gone deadly quiet, except for Prince Andrew's increasingly agitated voice. Even the production crew had stopped their frantic signaling and were just watching in fascination as one of the most spectacular career self-destructions in television history unfolded before their eyes. And what exactly is it that you do that's so irreplaceable? Susanna asked, her question devastatingly simple and direct. Prince Andrew seemed taken aback by the directness of the question. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. I represent the crown. I carry out royal duties. I meet with world leaders and business figures. I support charitable causes. All of which are important activities, Susanna agreed, but none of which require you to be rude to people doing their jobs or to dismiss the concerns of the public who fund those activities. The public, Prince Andrew said with disgust. The great unwashed masses who think their opinions matter because they vote every few years. You want to know what I really think about your precious public accountability? He was past the point of no return now, and Susanna could see it. Whatever his handlers had told him about staying on message, about being diplomatic, had been completely forgotten in his rage at being challenged by someone he clearly considered beneath him. "I think it's a joke," he continued, his voice rising again. "I think the idea that someone like you, or your viewers, sitting at home in their little houses, could possibly understand the complexities of international relations or royal protocol is laughable. You're all playing at being informed citizens while the real adults make the actual decisions." Susanna had heard enough. In her years as a journalist, she had developed a sense for when someone had revealed everything about their character that needed to be revealed. Prince Andrew had shown the nation exactly who he was. An entitled, contemptuous man who held ordinary people in absolute disdain. "Your Royal Highness," she said, her voice cutting through his rant like ice. "I think this interview is over." Prince Andrew looked shocked, as if the idea that someone might terminate a conversation with him was completely foreign to his experience. "You can't just end this interview," he sputtered. "I'm not finished making my point." "Yes, you are," Susanna said firmly, standing up from her chair. "Security will show you out." The cameras caught every moment as Prince Andrew realized that his tantrum had consequences. For perhaps the first time in his privileged life, someone was telling him no. Someone was refusing to enable his behavior. Someone was holding him accountable for his words and actions. As security personnel approached, Prince Andrew made one final, desperate attempt to assert his authority. "Do you have any idea who you're throwing out? Do you understand what this means for your career?" Susanna looked directly into the camera, speaking to the millions of viewers who had witnessed this extraordinary display. "This is what accountability looks like," she said simply. "No one, regardless of their title or background, has the right to treat people with such contempt." The last shot showed Prince Andrew being escorted from the studio, still protesting his treatment, still unable to comprehend that his own words and behavior had led to this moment. Behind him, Susanna Reid stood tall, having demonstrated that in the world of legitimate journalism, respect is earned, not inherited.